How much do you really need for retirement? In this video, we're going to talk about the 4% rule, which some people say is the answer to that question. Hello, I'm Erica Kohlberg. I'm a lawyer, and on this channel, I talk about personal finance. So let's dive in. The 4% rule is also known as the safe withdrawal rate. It gives you a guide for how much money you can spend in your retirement without running out. Basically, it helps you answer the question of, how do I make my money last as long as I do? The 4% rule was introduced by a financial advisor in 1994 and popularized by the Trinity Study, which refers to a paper written by 3 professors at Trinity University in 1998. What they looked at is, if you retired in a certain year with this set amount of money invested, how much could you pull out of that money each year to use for your living expenses without running out? They ran all of the different scenarios from 1926 to 1995, and they were looking at a few different questions. 1, how many years is your retirement? Is it 15 years, 20 years, 30 years? 2, how are your investments allocated? For example, 75% stocks and 25% bonds, or maybe 25% stocks and 75% bonds. Then the final question was, that first year you retire, how much do you withdraw? Basically, how much are you cashing out of your investments to spend that first year of retirement? If you have a $1 million portfolio and you're withdrawing 3%, that's $30,000. If you're withdrawing 4%, that's $40,000. They tested every option they could between 1926 to 1995, and they found that in most cases, if you started the first year of retirement withdrawing 4%, then adjust withdrawals for inflation every year after, you'd be successful. You can see all of the 100% success rates, the 98%, 95%, and then of course a little lower chance if you're shifting towards 100% bonds. And their definition of success was that you don't run out of money during your retirement period, whether it's 15 years or 30 years. So that's where this idea of the 4% rule, the safe withdrawal rate, came from. And how it helps you with retirement planning is it gives you a sense of how much you might need for retirement based on how much you expect your expenses to be. All you'll do if you're following the 4% rule is multiply your annual expenses by 25 to come up with what you would need to retire. So if you need $40,000 a year, then multiply that by 25, and it means you'd need $1 million invested to retire. If you want to spend $100,000 a year in retirement, that means you need to get to $2.5 million. Now, here's where I think the 4% rule is great. It's easy to remember. You just multiply your annual expenses by 25 to get a sense of what you might need by retirement. People also like rules and the peace of mind that comes along with them. I think it's much better to have a guide like this than to just have no idea what you need to retire. But here are a few things, caveats to keep in mind. The biggest one is that personal finance is personal. What the professors did for this 4% rule doesn't factor any personal things in. For example, it doesn't factor in your Social Security benefits or pension plans. It also assumes that you're never bringing in any additional money after you retire, which for some people might not be the case. I know that my grandpa, my Oji-chan, while he was retired, still had his little side hustle. He was working as a parking lot attendant. The 4% rule also assumes that you're spending the exact same amount each year, adjusted for inflation, and many studies have shown that people spend less as they age. Or maybe you might have a few expensive years while your kids are finishing up college. One more example I'll give you is that it assumes that whatever's happening in the world, in the market, you're still doing the same thing. You're still taking out the same amount regardless. In reality, is that going to be the case? Maybe not. If the market isn't doing so well, I'm probably not going to take out that same 4% and maybe might live a little more frugally that year. That's why I think you need to look at this as a rule of thumb, not necessarily a rule. 2, past performance is no guarantee of future returns. We can use the 4% rule as a guide, but there's never any guarantee. 3, there's always debate about whether the 4% rule still applies in this day, especially when yields are at all-time lows. So if that's something you're worried about, you just have to adjust for it and maybe assume that you're only going to be withdrawing 3% that first year of retirement. So instead of multiplying your annual expenses by 25 to figure out how much you'd need in your retirement pot, you'll multiply by 33.3. Now the next step, now that you know about the 4% rule, is to hit the like button. No, just kidding. Is to figure out where you're at right now, your current net worth, and I'm going to walk you through that next in this video. Thank you.